Hopefully everyone is doing well today. So this is the first time I've ever done anything like this, so please don't judge me too harshly. But I have a really interesting track for you guys today. Goddamn. Let's see. So, I mean, as you could tell, it's not the most organized project in the world, but this is a whip of mine that I started, I don't know, about a week ago, maybe. Definitely definitely not like my typical sound, but I think you all will be able to pull some interesting stuff from here. But yeah, I mean, honestly, I just say let's get into it. So, I'm gonna break some stuff down before we play it, just sort of to give you all a general idea of how I go about starting a track and such. But so what I have opened here, this is just my drum bus. Got some percussion loops that I just found on Splice or just some random packs from over here. Um, then let's see what else we got. We got our drop kick, build kick, just basic stuff. We got our hats group thrown in there as well. Going into here, we have our sub, which, I mean, is just an 808. I just sent it to a bus just to make it look more organized. And we got our main bass here, which I will touch on later throughout the stream, but this is actually a very interesting sound. And then we got our vocals in here. We have two buses in here. Our main vocal, which, I mean, you'll hear when I play it. And then we got just some filler vocals in here, just for some background stuff. And then the rest of these are just kind of there. Then we got our ambience bus here. I have a riser group thrown in here. I usually don't group that with ambience. I usually put it in an effects group, but I was just a little lazy on this one. Then we got some other ambience, which, I mean, again, we'll touch on, and our main ambience here. And then at the bottom, we just got our sidechain groups. So since this is a full-length track, I'm just going to kind of sift through the different sections of the song. So, but yeah, I mean, let's just get started with the intro. It starts off with this, let's see. Starts off with this little noise here. Actually, yeah, you know what? Why don't I just play the full track? But yeah, essentially that is the track. It's not quite done yet. I mean, there's still a few minor things that I want to go back on and fix, but yeah, I mean, I think it's cool. I think it's very, very cool. But since I already went over some of the bussing I did, we can just start by getting into it. So I'm just going to start from the top and go down. So again, looking at a drum bus, really the drums only start coming in. Oh, we got a question here. Where did you first start with the idea? Oh man. Um, I was listening to. Oh man. Now I can't even remember what song it was. But I was listening to kind of more like a relaxed kind of trap um trap tune, I should just say. And I kind of got the idea to go for something more minimalist, something more atmospheric. So, kind of something more out of my realm of what I'm used to producing, which is kind of just the ear piercing, death trap. No, it was not Rumble. I can't confirm it was not Rumble. But good guess though. I mean, maybe it'll come back to me eventually, but who knows as of right now. But yeah, so the drums don't really start coming in until the build up. And so the first loop we have here is just like a percussion loop. So, and I just pulled that from Splice. Nothing too special there, just to create some movement. Then we got this, which I'm actually, oh, I know what this is. This is more of like kind of like a, hmm, I don't know. It just kind of sounds like you're hitting stuff. It's that kind of percussion to back up this sort of hi-hat and cymbal loop up here. And so that's a favorite of mine. I've used that in a couple of my songs before. But this is the first time I'm using it sort of as like a somewhat main element. And then we come up here, and we have this thing that I also pulled from Splice. It's a Jersey percussion loop because for some reason, I had the idea of turning this into Jersey, I guess. We can go over some of the processing on these as well. So this percussion loop, I just have an EQ here that should actually be going on the end, but it works. So this EQ, this first EQ right here, is solely for, let me pull it up, solely just for high passing it as the build-up comes to an end. Now I have this EQ, which is doing kind of the, most of the work. I'm cutting some of the lows out to 278 hertz just because it sounded nice to me. And I'm also cutting out this frequency at 1000 hertz just because it sounded off. That's really the only way I can explain it. I have the highs lifted a little bit, not even a full decibel, and then I'm cutting some of like 18,000 hertz, pretty much stuff you can't hear anyways. And I will actually get into when you should and when you should not do this. Then I have an auto panner here just to kind of make it go back and forth with the amount cranked up all the way. Triangle wave and the rate at 1/8. Then I have a utility here, which is modulating the gain, which, as you can see, goes down to minus 20 decibels towards the end of the buildup. And that's literally all the processing for that. Then we can go to this percussion loop. This only has a utility on it, and then I'm pretty sure, oh yeah. So this has a decent bit of compression on it, just because some of the sounds were a little piercy, I should say. As you can see, that's what's doing there if I turn it off. So that's just taming some of the pops. throughout that loop. And then similar to the EQ on like the Jersey loop, cutting out the lows to about 310, little bit of a dip at 1400 hertz, and then again cutting off some of the inaudible high frequencies. They got two utilities on here, both modulating the gain. For some reason, I actually think that might be a mistake, but we'll see. If they're doing the same thing, then we'll know. Yep, so that was a mistake. I can get rid of one of those later. Is this? Oh yeah, okay. Then, along with that in the buildup are these little offbeat rim shots that come in. Oh, those aren't soloed. And these things are also audible in the drop as well, as you can see there. And processing on that is literally just cutting out lows. I thought it sounded pretty nice on its own, essentially. Then we get here, we have hi-hats coming in. And so this was actually a pretty recent addition, but was kind of doing like a smaller side chaining on these little hi-hat rolls here. Just because in the drop, it kind of clashed with the kick. And it made it sound a little bit too airy, a little bit distorted as well. So I wanted to fix that problem, and I just did like a simple fade in side chain there. Processing on this main hi-hat is another compressor. I pretty much, I EQ'd the hell out of it. And then Pro MB here. Oh wait, you actually can't see that when I pull that up, but essentially it's just a multi-band compressor that's just taming some of the super high frequencies that were annoying me. Then I have this EQ here, which is also doing the same thing, but just in a different spot. And then a utility to modulate the gain, as, again, the buildup comes to a close. And then we have this little hi-hat roll at the bottom, which comes in periodically, and there's no processing on it. I think it sounds good on its own. Then we go to the actual hats group. There's a bit of saturation on it. This EQ, which is absolutely destroying like any sign of frequencies below say 10,000 hertz. Then we have a glue compressor here, which honestly is not doing a whole lot, but it's just nice. You can kind of feel them gelling together just a little bit more. And then another multi-band compressor, which I think, yeah, is just taming like the super, super high end. And then we have our build kick here. Processing on this is like just an EQ to do a high pass like that. And now I can see where I got the Jersey idea from. And now we go into the drop. So, the drop drums are actually pretty simple. I'm not gonna lie, they're actually really simple. It's just a hip-hop beat, essentially. Oh, let me solo these with the hats as well. Oh no, what am I doing? But yeah, so essentially that's it. I guess we can dive into the kick here. So this has a little bit of a kick reducer on it, or actually a lot of it of a kick reducer. It just sounds nice. It sounds better, in my opinion. And then we have an EQ here, which is cutting out low end. What is this? Oh, that's right. So this used to be the build-up kick, but I decided to switch it because it just didn't sound right to me. But yeah. And then we have a utility on here as well, and that is essentially it for the kick. Now we go down here to our clap, which has an EQ that's cutting out lows from 150 hertz, and there's a little dip at 2200, just because this clap is very loud, and I had a lot of high end that I didn't like, so I wanted to tame it. Along with this, there's also a little bit of compression on here. And yeah, I've already gone over the hi-hats, I've gone over that. What else do we got? Oh yeah. This is a pretty interesting sound. This is just like a glass breaking kind of sound that I layered on top of some of the snares just to give it a little bit of variation, a little bit of texture as well. Just because I thought it sounded really cool. So, and then I'll touch on that later when we get to the second drop. Now moving on, we got our sub bass here, or our 808 actually. This has a very long sidechain as opposed to the length of the kick, which, I mean, I wasn't really a fan of doing, but I kind of had to, and it actually turned out sounding pretty well. So if I solo this, so that's our 808. Comes in on, well, it pretty much just comes in whenever I feel it needed to. So I did have an amp on here at one point, but it gave it a really like gross sounding ring to it. Yeah, and I just wasn't a fan of that. So what I threw on was this EQ, which is absolutely demolishing frequencies at 272 hertz, just because, I mean, it sounds whack. I just think that sounds better. Then we have another kick reducer on here just to kind of make the 808 a lot softer than it was. And then a utility. Let's see what else we got in here. Nope, just a utility on the bus. And that is literally it for the sub bass. I mean, that's yeah, it's very, very basic. So now we get to the cool part. So this is the main bass in the drop. Let me pull these out really quick. So yeah, that is the main bass in the drop. We can go through here, and as you can see, there are a lot of there's a lot of stuff on here. So not sure, yeah, but essentially the sound is just two sine waves. One sine wave on oscillator B is up 2 octaves and 7 semitones, and it's FMing from A. And there's a decent amount of distortion and a little bit of reverb, and that's literally it. It's a very, very, very simple patch. I kind of took the FN approach to it, where you make a simple sound and then it's all in the processing afterwards, which is what, you know, kind of makes like a really beefy bass sound. So if I turn all these off, this is what it sounds like. So we can go through here now, and I can show you some of the stuff I have on here. So I have an amp set to the clean setting at, you know, about 20% dry wet. And already off the bat, you can tell that gives it a little bit more beef. And then we have a compressor here, which is... I actually don't know what this is doing. Right, so that's taming some of the peaks. That got really annoying. I have a little bit of reverb here, just on 17%. It really doesn't add a whole lot to the sound, but it adds just enough sort of space in your high end where, I mean, stuff like this can make the difference, realistically. Now we have a saturator, which is boosting the sound a decent amount, 7.43 decibels. And I turned it down to 75% because it was a little too much. But yeah, and that makes it sound like this. So obviously there is a lot more kind of behind the sound. There's a lot more driving the sound. And then this is one of the main pieces in the sound is just this erosion set to wide noise. There's not too much, but it's still a decent amount of noise added on top, but let me just give you an idea. So let me play you this without the erosion. And now with the erosion. And so that's where you kind of get that sort of grittiness on your top end, is from just this one little erosion effect. Then we got pretty simple OTT. Pretty sure the depth is at like 30%. And then the time is turned all the way down. That is what provided, you know, the most to the sound. So we got this EQ here. It's a bit of a weirder EQ. It's just cutting out certain points that I don't really like. So like here at 93.8 hertz, there was a little bit of a tonal frequency that I didn't like. And then at 186, there was it was a weird harmonic that was playing the 7th or something like that, and it was just a little too much, so I cut it out about 1.5 decibels. Now I'm boosting the high end here, and yeah, and then this was another sort of muddier part that I just wanted to get rid of at 400 hertz. Then we got another EQ here, which is pretty much destroying another tonal frequency. That was really kind of hurting the sound as a whole. And I also got this little peak up here just for like the very, 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 like the super high end sort of stuff. Then I have this brick wall compressor. It just I mean, I've been saying this a lot. It just kind of beefs it up a little bit more. And then I have this, which is really starting to tame different parts of the sound that I did not enjoy. And it just makes the sound kind of, you know, sound fuller, I guess, if that's even a word. But then I have this utility here, which is turning down the width, just to make it more mono, but not completely mono. I actually discovered this last night because I was listening back to it, and the sound in mono kind of sounded off to me, so I wanted to try and fix that, and so I did this. And what I like about this is that it's giving it enough space on the sides, you know, to sound like it's covering a whole range, but it's not making it to where it starts muddying up with, you know, say hi-hats or some vocals and stuff like that. Then we have this thing that my friend Cole sent me. It's a little bit of reverb magic here. And essentially, this is doing pretty much the same thing as this one. It's not adding a whole bunch, but it also is at the same time. It's just making it a little bit wider and a little bit more airy on the top end. Then I have this EQ here, which is, again, killing another tonal frequency that I didn't like. I mean, realistically, all of the EQing in this you could probably do in like 2 different EQs, but I don't know why. Just the way I've always done it is just separate EQs for separate things. So I feel like that just makes it feel a little bit more organized, at least to me. And same thing here. There was a little bit of a ringy frequency around here, so I made a very, very, very sharp cut, basically just destroying it. I boosted the highs here a little bit, about a decibel, to try and give it some more air. And I cut this frequency out as well. So, or I'm not cutting it out, I'm just, kind of pushing it down a little bit more. Then we have this EQ here, which is just simple mid-side. Let me turn this on. So the mids is essentially the same thing as this last one. Actually pretty sure it is the same thing as that last one. And the sides here, I'm just cutting to 220 hertz, just so like no bass or like low mids breach, kind of the space on the sides, and that they stay mono. And then similar to the mid EQ, I am doing a cut around 11,500 hertz, but this one's a little bit bigger, just because on the sides you can hear the ringy frequency just a little bit more. And I wanted to get rid of that. So then finally we have, or I shouldn't say finally, but we're almost there. We have a multi-band compressor, which is doing, I know you guys can't see it, but it's essentially, actually, let me try to get that fixed. No, I don't think I can. That's okay. But essentially what it's doing is that it's compressing the low mids, and it's boosting the mid-range just a little bit, but until a certain point. And then the high end from about 10,000 hertz, it's dampening just a little bit. So not too much there. And then we have a Pro L to finish it off, which is just a limiter. I have it boosted about 7 decibels just to try and get it as loud as I can without, destroying the bass. But yeah, essentially that is this is the processing chain. Yeah, damn VST Windows ain't showing. Yeah, I know. It's a hard life out here. And then moving on, underneath the bass, I have this little white noise layer here, which is literally just, I went into Serum and I opened AirCan 2 in the noise section. And I frequency shifted it up 5,000 hertz. I did have a saturator on here at one point, but it just provided like a weird, again, like a ringy sort of sound that I didn't like, so I took it off. I got OTT here, which is 32%. Nothing else was touched there. Brick wall compressor, which is essentially just taming some of the high end that I didn't really like. I got an imager here, which is basically pushed all the way. It's spreading the white noise just so, yeah, it makes it seem like the bass is very spacious. And then I have this EQ, which I am only doing like a very sharp high cut at 22,000 hertz. And then a utility here, which is just automating like the mute. And I also have that on the main bass as well, and the bus, just to be sure that nothing bleeds through. So the actual bass bus itself literally just has an OTT at 30% and a utility, again, to automate the mute. And that is essentially it. Let me close these down, and we can start moving on a little bit more. So this is the, yeah, this is the vocal section. Probably my favorite, this is probably my favorite track that I've worked on that has vocals in it. But I will just start from the top. In the main vocal section, we have this, which I found on Splice. And I'm starting to freak out. Oh, where should I go? But yeah, so that is the vocal that I'm using throughout this. So there's a few things going on here. So let me just see this. So this is Little Altar Boy. I'm only using it for the formant shift just because I think it sounds really cool. Oh, where should I go? And it's only being modulated in its certain parts, so like. Oh, where should I go? So when the voice gets a little bit deeper, that's when you know the formant has shifted. And then I have this EQ here, just like a radio EQ or like a telephone EQ, which is also only being modulated in its certain parts. So I automated the device on and off, and so it's only coming in at these sections. So it's letting the main part of the vocal play, and then these are just kind of like background sort of things. Then back again with the reverb magic. This thing is being automated, or the mix is being automated. Dry wet actually, to basically just cut out here right before the drop. And then I have this EQ here, which is cutting out 77 hertz and 18,000 hertz. That is essentially it for the main vocal. Now we got this one, which is, let me solo this. So that one is in the drop. I have this rack here that one of my friends sent me, and essentially it's literally just a vocal rack. It has OTT, an EQ that's softly getting rid of the low end, a glue compressor, and some overdrive to help give it a little bit more air. Then I have another radio filter here, but this is always on the sound. As you can hear if I go back and play the drop. And yeah, I mean, I think it would sound kind of weird without it on. So yeah. Then I have a LFO tool, which is really not doing anything. It's just making the, it's just softening up the transient a little bit. Just so every time the vocal plays, it's not like a huge like pop and click sound. Because that's not good for your ears. Alright, anyways. So we have a device on and off automation here. This comes in towards the... This comes in during the breakdown, I believe. No, it does not. That's in the B section. Okay. But so in the B section, I have the formant turned down on this, which yeah, it comes in here. And then I have a utility, which is decreasing the width of the sound. And I have a tuner just because I didn't know what note that was, so I had to figure that one out. And essentially that is it for the main vocals. Yeah, there's nothing on the bus. So we can move along. So now we are getting into the filler vocals, which sound like this. And then there's this one.
Yeah.
And there's only two of them. I mean, it's just a breath sound. with Supermassive on it. Oh, let's see, we got a question here. When you first make a song, which part do you prioritize first? Bass, sub, or perks? This is interesting. Honestly, what I usually do first when I start producing a song, and I mean, this one is no different, I start with a beat. I just lay out a very, very, very simple beat. And then I try and build from there. And if the beat doesn't work out, yeah, I mean, I just stop and I move on to something else. So, but yeah, there's a quote. I forget who it's by, but it's like, if the drums don't smack, the beat is whack. So that's kind of what I go off of. If I don't make a good beat, then, yep, that's it. I try again. So, but yeah, back to the little breath sound here. This is from a Excellent Sounds pack. Just has a Valhalla Supermassive on it, which is doing sort of like a fake reverb effect. I can explain that here. This looks weird, but it will make sense. So essentially, the reverb is being modulated in as the sound plays through. And then after here, I'm doing like a little sort of LFO effect with the mix. So if I turn off the auto panner, actually. And so that's basically doing like a little, yeah, if the drums don't smack, the beat is whack. That's right. But yeah, so this is essentially doing like a little triangle-shaped LFO, which I just think it gave the reverb a lot more character than just simply having it, just on its own. And then here as well, I am modulating in a auto pan, which is on 32 notes, or well, 32 note, with just a sine curve, and yeah, I'm also cranking the amount to 100%. And just so it expands to the sides, just gives it a little bit more character, which I thought sounded actually really sick. And what else is in here? Oh yeah, the little the go vocal. Let's see. Yep, this is literally just a delay.
Yo.
Oh.
Yo.
It's not the go vocal, it's the yo vocal. And it's literally just a delay.
Yo.
That's it. Couldn't get much more simpler than that. So, but yeah, that's it for the filler vocals. Now we can start moving on to these things. So you hear this occasionally throughout the song. It's just like a little, I don't even really know what this is. It's just like a weird, like, tech house vocal, I think. And then in the drop, you'll hear it as this. And yeah, so what am I doing here? Another radio filter, this compressor here, and little altar boy. And I turn the format down to, so that just sounds a little bit deeper. So if I turn it back up, I just think it sounds nicer when it's turned just a little bit lower. And yeah, I'm also automating the panning here so that you can see it looks like this. Start off in the center, go right, go left, go right, back mono, go left. And it's essentially doing that same kind of panning pattern every time in the drop and in the breakdown. The only time it's not doing that is when it's over here. Now we can move on to this. This is in the breakdown, and you can hear it if you... Yeah. So it's very subtle, but you can definitely hear it coming in a little bit. All it is that there's just a compressor on it, and I faded it a little bit because I didn't like the ending of it. And then yeah, the sound is in both breakdowns. It's just a delayed vocal that I found on Splice, I'm pretty sure. Splice is goated, by the way. Definitely check it out if you have not. Then we got this Ecali vocal here. Which has a ping pong delay. It has a reverb. I think it's a small reverb. Let me look. Yeah, only at 28%. So it's a pretty small reverb for the most part. Oh, I will play the drop again really quick. Give me 1 second. Oh god, I'm soloing stuff. But yes, that is the drop. Back to the vocal thing. So again, small reverb. A little bit of ping pong delay on here. Where did you find yourself being stuck the most? Oh, okay. Yes. There definitely was an aha moment. It was for the second drop. So I usually get stuck. I'll usually make like a really sick like first drop, then a breakdown, everything leading up to a second drop, and I'll just get stuck. No different here. We'll touch on the second drop here in a little bit, but yeah, writing the second drop, I got very stuck on until I actually kind of made something on accident, and I was like, this is sick. This is really sick. What do you do to deal with writer's block? This is kind of a hot take, but I don't think writer's block is real. I think that it's just the mindset that you kind of put yourself in when you're, actually, I shouldn't say it's not real, but it is definitely something that, you can get over very easily if you just kind of sit down and force yourself to make something. Usually what I do when I am lacking any sort of creativity is, I usually just force myself to make something outside of the realm that I don't already, or that I don't usually make. So for me, I'm a trap producer. I'll make a synthwave track, or I'll make like a future bass or something like that. Something to just kind of get me out of that mindset. Something that'll get my sort of innovation flowing. Yep, trap wave. But yeah, that's essentially it for the Akali vocal. I mean, there's an EQ, a little alter boy again, which comes in later, I believe. I don't know, actually. Yes, it does. Yep, so that comes in later. This is a monstrosity of automation. I don't know why it looks like that, but it does. But yeah. Moving on here, so that's it for the Akali vocal. We have these two interesting vocals that I found. I've had these for a while. I found it in like some very sus looking sample website about a year ago, maybe, if I remember right. But and then we can go to this one. So very weird stutter delay on this one, but I think it sounds really cool. It gives it a weird movement. As you can see, this one has 0 processing on it. Because realistically, you can't hear it, so why process it if you really can't hear it, and it's only, used as a one-shot every now and then. This one also has no processing on it, but I just think these two kind of give the track more space, like during the breakdowns and intros and stuff like that. Yes, exactly. Sus samples, sus sample websites. Sometimes they have some gems in there. But yeah, that is it for the vocal section. Yeah, there's nothing on the main bus either. Ooh, I should say, one thing is that some of these are getting routed to a vocal sidechain, which is down here. It's just an LFO tool. It's a pretty big cut. It's a pretty big sidechain, and yeah, just my MIDI trigger. And yes, MIDI sidechaining is the best sidechaining. No one can tell me otherwise. But yeah, and that's it for the vocals. We can move on to the ambience now, which is one of my favorite parts about this whole track, was putting sort of the atmospheric sections together. So to start off, I'm just going to go over the riser section here. We have I'm going to move this one up here. So there are 3 risers in total in the buildup. You ain't headlining unless you're downloading 3 black market Trojan viruses while trying to get a snare sample. That's right. Nothing more true than that has ever been spoken. Ever. But yeah. So we got this riser here. This is from a Cabe's sample pack, I believe. Yeah. Very cool sounding, I will say, which is why I picked it in the first place, just because I really liked how it sounded. We got this one, which is more of like, I'm pretty sure it's like a sweeping. Yes, it is. And so I think it is very important to also lay down a white noise riser on top of your actual risers. I feel like it just makes sort of everything in your build-up sound just that much more crisp and airy. Then my favorite riser of all time, I use this in pretty much every single track that I've ever made, is oversampled Ultimate Future Bass pack riser 5. That is the best riser to ever exist. I just want to make that very clear, that is the best riser to ever exist. Anyways, so that's it for the risers. Again, there's only 3 of them. Nothing too crazy. Yes, layers, 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 for sure. Then moving down here in the bus, we have this really cool sounding little sweep effect. You probably picked up on this in the intro, but in case you didn't, it sounds like this. So it's like a super granular sounding, I guess, like wind chime sort of thing. It does sound like something you would make. It does. Yeah. But yeah, and then moving on from there, there's this little kind of siren-y sounding transition effect. And I'm actually not blasting that with reverb, which I'm kind of surprised about. It already has a decent amount on there anyways. But this sound is heard throughout many different parts of the song, going into the intro, going into the build, going into the breakdown, going into the build again, and going into the breakdown, and going to the outro. I use it a lot. It's a really, really, really cool sound. But yeah, that about does it for the riser section. We got this thing for ambience here. There's not a whole lot going on here, realistically, but it's still a very, 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 very cool sound. Or cool sounds, I should say. So we have this, which I actually don't know what it does. Oh yeah, it's a little camera sound that helps transition into the build-up. That's really cool. We got this thing here, which is it's a little bleep sound, which I've used in a couple tracks before. That sound is awesome. Literally just blasting it with reverb, and yeah. And then we got the classic wheel up signal. Oh, let me unmute that. Which I am blasting again with some reverb, and then I'm using an imager to widen it after the reverb. And then we got, what is this? I don't know. What is this? Oh yeah, this carries into the second drop. This is another little edit I made of the wheel up signal, but we'll get to that. And then the main ambient section, which I think is just awesome. Yes, exactly. Wake up, filthy. Yep, that is the same sound. But yeah, this is the ambient section. I'm not gonna talk too much on it because there's a lot of stuff here. But essentially, there is a noise sound layered in the background. It's just kind of like a crunchy rain sound. You can tell it's been thrown through a lot of OTT. A Kali one shot. Another Akali one shot. Guilty of using samples, but you know, samples are good. You are allowed to use samples. Do not be discouraged to use samples. Now we have these two atmosphere loops, which I think are awesome. So more so like drone sounds for this top one. You can solo this. That one's really cool. And then we have this sort of delayed vocal on here. Which just gives the intro a lot more space, which I really like about it. We have this sound, which I've also been using in a lot of tracks. And so essentially what this is, I mean, as you can tell by the name, it's a pad. I have this plugin called OCS45 Cassette Simulator. This is by Oversampled. And this plugin is amazing. It's literally just makes kind of a... It gives a sound sort of like a vintage tape sound to it. So if I turn this off... Just gives it a little bit more air, a little bit more life to it as well. Then I got this EQ here, just cutting out the lows to about 206 hertz. And I got this plugin called Rift on it, which is doing sort of an LFO, like what an LFO would do, but on top of that, distorting the high end of the sound. So like if I take this off, and yeah, then I got a utility to automate the mute, and that's about it for that. And now let's see what else we got here. This is my favorite section here. This is the pad and Reese section. I wasn't happy about doing this, but for the background, I just decided to use like a chord loop from Macaulay, which sounds like that. Actually, let me turn all these off, and then I'll play it. So it's a very pretty chord progression, which is, you know, kind of what stuck out to me the most. I can go through here and show you the processing on it. What makes up majority of the sound is, again, the tape simulator. So without and with. Gives it a lot more air. I really like it. This EQ boosting 2200 hertz, decent amount as well. Then I have this erosion here, just giving a little bit more air. And I have a reverb here at 25% dry wet, so it's not doing a whole lot, but you know, it's there. And then finally a EQ just for that, or no, actually for this. And yeah, that about does it for that pad. We can move on to the Reese bass. Ooh, reminder. So the main bass preset and this Reese bass preset are going to be in the sample pack, by the way, which already came out. It should be in the resources channel in the Discord. Anyways, so for this Reese bass, it's pretty simple. I mean, I know you can't see the serum tab, but I mean, distortion compressor or multiband, or no, not even a multiband compressor, EQ, and both oscillators on. Yeah, grab the pack, you'll be able to use it. Yeah, and without these extra added effects to it, it sounds like this. Sounds pretty weak as it is right now, which is why I decided to add a saturator to it. Gives a little bit more beef. Then I added a erosion here. Which is really doing most of the work. Then a compressor to sort of tame some of the bad frequencies that the erosion might have added. Then this EQ, just modulating, or this little cut here is for modulating, and I cut out some of these mid frequencies just so that it could blend with the pad just a little bit better. And together, these sound like this. And yeah, that's essentially it for that. And then last three things in the ambience tab, and then we will go over the second drop. Got this little arpeggio thing. Again, I use so many Akali samples in here. I kind of feel guilty about it, but just that, no effects on it. And this one down here. And so this one down here is panned to the left, the other one is panned to the right, so it kind of gives you like a different contrast when you're listening to it. And then finally, I have this little, again, another Akali sample, this little pan flute sound. I will explain this. I know it looks odd, but yeah. So essentially, I am again using Supermassive with the mix turned all the way up. And then I have this EQ here, which, let me just turn this off. So as you can probably hear, there's like a bit of like a whistly frequency in there, which I really liked. It wasn't super piercy. I just thought it would sound better than having the full pan flute sound. So I did my best to slice the pan flute frequencies out of it and just get that whistling frequency. I did want to keep the high end, so that's why I'm not fully cutting it out. But yeah, now it sounds like this. So definitely that sort of whistly sound is a lot more prevalent now, which is a cool sound. And it transitions from here, no. So it's there, and then it just starts here right before the build-up, and it kind of carries in, which I think sounds really nice. Nice touch. Alright, second drop time. Cool. Because that about does it for the first half of the song. Really nothing has changed, except I kind of cut the drums out, or the kick out here in the build-up. But yeah, guess we can start up here in the drum bus again. This is a Akali percussion like shaker thing, which I thought sounded really cool. That essentially just kind of helps it transition into the drop a little bit better. I can solo the drum bus here. Let's do that really quick. Oh boy, what am I doing? So what I'm adding here is this clap. Basically quarter note rhythm. Sounds really cool. And I wanted to change sort of the flow of the drop. And now we can, let's see what else we got here. I know I added a perk, but I don't know where it is. This? It is this. Okay, cool. So, yeah, I took out the little offbeat rim shots in this drop, and I turned it into this. So kind of just hard panning left or right, and it is going down in pitch thanks to the frequency shifter. I just think it just added a little bit. Then we got this EQ here, cutting out lows, and that's it. That's literally it for that sound. Yeah, so if we go back and play the drop. That is essentially it. I mean, not a whole bunch changed with the drums, so, and yeah, realistically, nothing changed from the bass. I will say though, opening the MIDI, there is some. Where is it? Yeah, it's in here. There is some pitch modulation going on. In this case, this one is going straight down in this part of the drop, but if we go back to the first one, the modulation is just going up and then coming back down. But yeah, I mean, nothing has really changed in this drop other than the drums and some of the effects. And I can go over those really quickly. So we got, this thing again. And now there's a different version of the wheel up signal that comes in certain parts. I think it only comes in twice. Yeah, it only comes in twice throughout this drop. But it is the first little sound you hear. It's this first little sound. I took a chop out of it, and I threw on some ping pong delay, and yeah. Oh yeah, and it is modulated as well to cut off right there until the next one starts to play. But yeah, essentially, that about does it. Again, really not too much is going on for the second drop. Added a clap, added a little pitching down perks, and the wheel up symbol. That's about it, and then it transitions into the breakdown. I'm so sorry. Then transitions out. That about does it. I mean, for this track, I would definitely say this is on the more simple side. At least for, in terms of my production, I usually do a lot of like heavier sound design. But this one is just a trap beat with a cool little wubby bass sound over it. That's pretty much it. The only other thing left to do is to go over the master. Let's see. But yeah, so we got our mastering chain here. There's a saturator, only being boosted 2 decibels, some mid-side EQ, multiband, just a little bit, glue compressor, and then a limiter at the end, which is boosted 6 decibels, just to give it that extra loudness. And I will say, just as a side note, this track is still in the pre-master stage, so obviously this is not going to be the final, but this is where I'm at as of right now. But yeah, that essentially does it. I'm willing to take questions now if anyone has any. But yeah, again, compared to my usual production, I would say this is more on the simple side. Oh, here we go. How do you make variations / fills in your songs? This one kind of depends. It kind of depends what style I'm making, because obviously in a track like this, I'm not going to be using like huge tom fills or stuff like that. It really just depends on what kind of style your song is. So, and usually with variations, I like to add I just like to add elements from different parts of the songs. So, which reminds me, I actually haven't gone over a very important piece for the second drop. But I usually like to add parts, or I usually like to add sounds from different parts in the songs and kind of feed those into the drop. So it sort of gives it, kind of a sense that, hey, I know this, like I've heard this, so it's a little bit more recognizable. Um, but yeah, anyways, going back to the drop, I cannot believe I forgot to do this, but the vocal. I totally forgot about this. I don't know how, but yeah, this is the same um, vocal that you hear from. It's this, just without the delay. And so pretty much I am just modulating the hell out of the format. And yeah, that's literally it for modulation. Um, I felt the need to add this just simply because I thought it gave the drop a little bit more depth. And again, like I said with the variation stuff, it just made it sound a little bit more familiar, which in turn will make it sound just that much better. So. But yeah, and it blends pretty well in there as well, I would say. Um, but yeah, I mean, willing to answer any questions if there are any. Um, but yeah, that is essentially it for this one. Um, I'm hoping to get it fully finished within the next couple weeks. Um, at the same time, I also know that that's not very realistic, but we'll see. We will see. But yeah, I mean, I guess if there are no other questions, I think that's about it. Yeah. How would you go about doing any of your death trap sound design? Hoo, boy. Um. Okay. Um. Wow. Usually, what I tend to do. Um. I mean, is there any sound in particular you're thinking of, or is it just my death trap sounds in general? Okay. Yeah. Okay. So I'm thinking more so of, or I mean, I'm thinking specifically of one sound that I made. It was an older track of mine called Particle Destruction. Um, but essentially, like that sound, that sustain is, from what I can remember, it's pretty much just two saw waves that I distorted the hell out of. I added a lot of noise, and ooh, FM from B is go-to death trap technique, in Serum when you're Serum sound designing for death trap. Always FM from B. Modulate the coarse pitch on a really fast LFO that's curved on both ends. Um, I did say FM from B, yes. Um, yeah, coarse pitch modulation, FM from B, using the sync knob on oscillator B, is really good to get some strange tones. Um, I mean, in post processing too, distortion, heavy compression, stuff like that. It's all very vital to making a sound like that. No, it's not vital, it's serum. Okay. But yeah, I mean, I think I think that about does it. But yeah, again, I'm hoping to finish this up soon, but we will see. But until then, I really appreciate everyone coming to this. Thank you all. I see a lot of familiar faces in here, a lot of familiar names. Um, but yeah, I appreciate it.